Gatos Planning Commission meeting is now called to order. I will now call the roll. Commissioners, please state here when your name is called. Commissioner Burnett.
Here.
Commissioner Raspy.
Here.
Commissioner Barnett.
Here.
Commissioner Stump.
Here.
And Commissioner Sorty.
Here.
And I am here as well. Please note for the record that Vice Chair Birch is absent. And I just would like to welcome our newest commissioner, Commissioner Sorty. Thank you for your willingness to participate in this important work that we do in town. So thank you very much.
Pleasure to be here.
Now we will be doing the pledge. So we all, do you have your mic or no? Oh, can we, yes, everyone please stand if you are able.
Yeah, if I can have everybody join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
Okay. As the Planning Commission conducts this meeting this evening, we encourage active participation by the public, which is essential to the work of the Planning Commission. The public can participate in several ways. Prior to a meeting, written comments about agenda items may be submitted to staff. And during the meeting, there are a few opportunities for members of the public to participate. First, during the verbal communications period, an individual may speak on any topic that is not on the agenda. Second, during the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting, any member of the public may speak about an agenda item. You will be advised of the times when you should speak on each of the items. If you wish to address the commission tonight during the verbal communications portion or a public hearing agenda item, please raise your hand on Zoom, or for those in person, complete a speaker card and give it to a staff member. When you are called to speak, please come up to the podium and speak directly into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded. And if you can please state your name and address for the record or indicate you are speaking anonymously, you will have 3 minutes to speak. So first we will have verbal communications, and this is from members of the public who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda at tonight's meeting, and there's no one in the chambers, but is there anyone on Zoom?
Not currently.
Okay, thank you. Next, we will be moving on to our consent items. So before the Planning Commission acts on the consent agenda, any member of the commission may request that an item be removed from the consent calendar agenda. At the chair's discretion, items removed from the consent calendar may be considered either before or after public hearings portion of the agenda. And we do have 3 items on our consent calendar tonight. One is the draft minutes of our April 23rd meeting, the draft minutes of our April 30th special meeting, and then a third item, which is considering an appeal, to anyway, that one, you can read it online. There's 3 items.
So I then sort of assume that I need to ask to pull item number 1.
I think that you can actually just, if we have a motion, and then you can, with that motion, you can make a recommended change.
Well, then let me ask staff this clarifying question if I can.
Can we ask a clarifying question?
Yeah, and the question that I would ask, I wanted to go back to the motion that was made at the very end of the meeting related to the Los Gatos Boulevard project. Sorry, let's see, the 15349, 15367. The intent of the motion versus the way it was recorded. Would we need to pull that off to just have some discussion about that out of the consent calendar?
I do recommend pulling that because that sounds more detailed than just a date change.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'd like to pull item number 1 from the consent.
Should we act on the other 2 items?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone have a motion for the other 2 items? Yes, Commissioner Stump.
So moved.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Barnett. And so I'll call the question. This is just for items 2 and 3. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Chair, if I can make one clarification. With respect to item 2, I was not present at the meeting, so I will abstain from that vote.
Okay.
But I will vote in favor of item number 3.
Okay. Yes.
And I will repeat what Commissioner Raspy just said. I was absent for the meeting on April 30th, but I would
Okay. So,
recommend number 3.
okay. So that is going to be problematic because there's only 3 of us, unless our brand new commissioner happened to watch that meeting and approves of these minutes.
I did watch.
Okay, if you watched the minutes, I mean, if you watched the meeting and the minutes reflect what occurred at that meeting, then you are able to vote on the minutes.
Yes, I did watch
Okay.
the entire meeting.
Beautiful. Let's count that then. Okay. So, all those in favor of,
And should I mention before I vote, I did watch both as well.
oh, okay.
So I think I can vote in favor.
Perfect. Okay. So all those in favor, please raise their hand of the motion, raise their hand, except you're abstaining
With respect to item
to
number
item 2. Okay. And the motion passes unanimously. And then we will discuss the draft minutes of the April 23rd meeting. So Commissioner Stump, do you have a question?
We're doing that now. I thought it was going to be at the end of the meeting, which is fine.
Do we?
I know the
Since
town
someone's here.
council rules provide that the consent items that get pulled are heard at the end of the meeting. The commission could do that if it wanted to, since there's no public comment or no public in attendance. Either way would work for the commission tonight.
Okay. I say we just do it now since it's at the top of our agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The big error that I identified is in the header of the minutes. It identifies the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting of May 14, 2025. It should be April 23. So that's the very, very detailed nit. The other item I wanted to go back to was on page 6 of the meeting minutes, which refers to the motion that was made for 15349-15367 Los Gatos Boulevard. And we obviously conditioned this motion on 2 things. One, that design elements would be considered by the applicant, the suggestions that were made, and secondly, that the town council directs staff to develop a method to study the cumulative impacts of SB 330 projects, including this project. We had lots of conversation about making this somewhat of a date certain, or I would call it a time frame certain, perhaps, that we were saying that, and we'd like to see this done within 30 days. By the way, I went and looked at YouTube today. That was not in the motion, so I'm not claiming that that it was overlooked in the meeting minutes. It is not. I guess what I'm looking for at this point in time is any, guidance from staff as to where we are on that, and if there's any way, if needed, that we need to give additional guidance or to cure the lack of time bounding on this condition.
If it's helpful, I anticipate that there would be a proposal presented within 30 days of today.
So originally it was, and again, I'm not trying to be argumentative at all. Originally it was going to be within 30 days of April 23rd. So now that's about 3 weeks ago. So you're basically saying at this point that another 30 days is needed?
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have put a time frame when I spoke first,
Okay.
because it's super complex.
Yeah, I
but
understand.
I would say we're very close to having a recommendation.
Thank you.
So I just have a question. I don't think the date is incorrect because the date is for today's, it's an item for today's meeting. For clarification.
It looks like there's some inconsistency. So
On one of the okay, on
Yeah.
a page down. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. I was confused. Okay. On that part. Okay. So Commissioner Stump, I guess my question is, you said that you went back and watched the meeting and that wasn't included in the original motion, so I don't think that we can vote to change the minutes. Okay.
Oh, no, understand. I was
Okay.
asking for clarification. I received the clarification, and so I'm ready to make a motion to approve
The current
meeting
with the
minutes.
change, with the date
Yeah,
change.
exactly, with the big
Perfect.
date change.
Okay, you
So I move that we approve the April 23rd minutes with the date change in the header to to April 23rd, 2025.
Chair, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise their hand. And that passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. And thank you for that clarification. So we will now be moving on to the public hearings portion of our meeting tonight. And we have one item on the agenda. So we will start with that item number 4. And this is to consider making a recommendation to Town Council on an ordinance amending Chapter 29 zoning regulations of the Town Code for SB 9 in response to the provisions of SB 450. The proposed amendments to the Town Code are not considered a project under Section 15378 of the California Environmental Quality Act and in accordance with Government Code Section 66411.7N and 66452.21G. Senate Bill 9 ordinances are not a project subject to CEQA, and the town amendment application is A-25-002. The project location is townwide, and the applicant is the town. Before the staff report, are there any disclosures on this? Okay. And I believe Mr. Safdie will be giving us, sorry, I was questioning whether you were or not, and then I saw you there. So, Mr. Safdie, you have the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening, Commissioners. Before you are draft amendments to the Senate Bill 9 or SB 9 ordinance in response to the provisions of Senate Bill 450 or SB 450. SB 9 was first adopted by the state in 2021, which required ministerial approval of certain housing development projects with reduced setbacks, as well as substandard lot splits on single-family zoned parcels. The original law allowed local jurisdictions to adopt specific design and subdivision standards applicable for SB 9 applications. The town's current SB 9 ordinance has several design standards that are only applicable to SB 9, which were created by staff in an attempt to protect neighborhood privacy and encourage orderly development. For these development applications that are required to be processed both ministerially, with no public hearing, and with reduced side and rear yard setbacks. On January 1st of this year, SB 450 went into effect, which modified SB 9. SB 450 made changes to the amount of demolition allowed to an existing residence that had previously been rented. It adds additional timelines for local agency processing of SB 9 applications. It made modifications to the SB 9 denial findings, and most impactfully, it restricted the imposition of design and development standards on SB 9 projects that do not apply uniformly to development within the underlying zone. The proposed modifications in the draft SB 9 ordinance in Exhibit 4 of this staff report are to bring the town's SB 9 ordinance in compliance with the provisions of SB 450, as well as provide clarification on existing standards that have caused confusion over the past couple of years. The staff report outlines each of these proposed changes with justification or reasoning to why each of them was done. Public comments were received and included in Exhibit 5 of the staff report, Exhibit 6 of the addendum report, and Exhibit 7 of today's desk item report. The desk item report also includes responses to commissioner questions that were received yesterday. Based on the discussion provided in the report, staff recommends that the Planning Commission review the information included in the report and forward a recommendation to the Town Council for approval of the amendments to Chapter 29 of the Town Code in Exhibit 4 and make the required findings in Exhibit 1. And this concludes staff's presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff at this time? Okay, seeing
I had
none,
a few questions.
Oh, yes.
Sorry if I'm asking some goofy questions you guys already know the answers to, but regarding the design standards, I was curious to know about the limitation on the size of 1,200 square feet I know that was initially done to attempt to encourage affordability. Does the town get any housing element credit for SB9 like they do for ADUs? Or?
Thank you for your question. So yes, the town gets credit for any new housing unit, whether it's an ADU, SB9, single family, multifamily, anything that creates a new unit, we do get credit for.
Okay, but not as an affordable unit. It's just
For
you get credit as a
SB9,
market rate unit.
no ADUs. The state has a methodology which, up until the end of last year, we've utilized where we can count many of those as affordable units, but that methodology may not move forward into this year and beyond without some further justification.
Okay, and there's no way to statutorily restrict an SB9 unit to affordability in any way?
There's not.
Yeah, okay. I had a couple other questions. Just on the demolition, I think it's pertinent to housing that's been occupied by a tenant in the last 3 years. Is the component I just wanted to ask about. Like, how would you go about proving or disproving that? Like, it sounds like if somebody wanted to do an SB9 on a single-family detached lot, does the town monitor rentals? I mean, how would you know there was a tenant in there in the last 3 years unless somebody stepped up and complained when somebody made an application? Is there?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So that's essentially handled by an intent affidavit when they sign the application form. And they are required to provide some proof of that rental history, but the town does not monitor that.
Okay. And then finally, just regarding the requirement to make it saleable, I think for ADUs, it's basically a condo map. The way I understand it, for SB9, is it going to end up being a parcel map? Or can you do a condo for an SB9?
Thank you for that question. So no, you can't currently do a condo for an SB9. I believe actually the SB9 ordinance is set up for that, but the town council chose not to go that route previously. So the only way you could sell any of these is the sale of the actual parcel created by an urban lot split.
Okay, thank you.
As a follow-up to that, can you just discuss the utilities recommendation that was included by ABAG for that possibility in the future? Okay, thank you.
Definitely. So a couple of questions have come up on the utility section. You'll see, I think there was at least 2 different public comments related to that. I'll touch on all of them. So there was a request, I believe that was in the addendum yesterday, to essentially allow shared sewer connections between the units. That's a building code requirement. You have to have separate sewer. The utility piece, you're correct, that was an ABAG recommendation. And in fact, it's still in ABAG's recommendation as of this year, so they didn't change that recommendation. My honest opinion to why that's included is to set up for the potential that maybe a year or 2 from now, SB9 will change and require individual sales. But that's just a guess. I don't know why.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Raspy?
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of follow-ups on the same line about the separateness of the new buildings. So we're required to design them such that they can be separately conveyed. Does this legislative scheme mandate that they be permitted to be separately sold, or is that in consideration further down the line?
It's not mandated under this current Senate bill. Who knows what's going to happen later down the line. On a different topic, I noticed that the legislative language you've inserted addresses the Ellis Act. It's my understanding Town of Los Gatos is not currently involved in the Ellis Act. Is that correct? That is my understanding, but I'll look to the director and a town attorney to confirm.
We don't currently have, if I remember correctly, that's a rent control statute, and the town does not currently have rent control in place.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm.
Commissioner Barnett?
Thank you, Mr. Stafty, for getting out the answers to the many questions that I asked you. But in addition, was there a response on Mr. Venichetti's letter regarding the 10% bonus FAR for 2 development?
Thank you for that question. So the town's always had a 10% bonus for 2-unit developments, the same way we do with accessory dwelling units. And in fact, I don't know of any other jurisdictions that are doing that. So we're kind of the only ones that I'm aware of doing that.
Good, glad to hear that.
Any other questions? Okay. We will now move to the public comment portion. There's no one still in the chamber. Is anyone on Zoom wanting to speak on item number 4?
Yes, Chair, we do have someone that wants to speak.
Okay, you should be able to unmute yourself and you will have 3 minutes.
Harini?
Hi, I'm Harini. Thanks for the staff and the commission for taking up and fixing SB9 with SB 450. During the original permanent SB9 ordinance back in 23, I specifically requested the town council to remove the 1200 square foot second unit limit as it defeats the intent and purpose of the state law. But that suggestion was ignored, probably to try and see what sticks in. But that sort of thinking makes it difficult for the town to control objective town planning, and until a more stricter state law comes in and just takes over the town's control completely. So I would request just be in line with the intent of state law. Regarding the bonus, I think I saw the comment and I think I agree with that comment about being consistent with 10% bonus FAR. As rightly suggested, the SB9 with a non-split scenario allows 4 units to be developed, and the ADUs are provided a minimum of 800 square foot or a 10% of the lot size. Here, I only see 10% of the lot size. The minimum of 800 is not there in the SB9, so I would request you to add that. And again, another thing is the shared utilities is a serious issue. I think we can have shared utilities and yet separately conveyable. And as rightly said in the comments by other residents, that sewers are not metered and there's no need for shared utilities for that, as a permit and installation costs are quite high for multiple sewers. So it's always good to have shared utilities for those sort of things. So thanks a lot for taking up this effort. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Does anyone have any questions for the speaker? No. Okay. Are there any other hands raised on Zoom?
There are no other hands raised.
Okay. We will now close the public portion of this public hearing on item number 4, and I invite commissioners to ask questions of staff, provide comments, or propose a motion. Anyone want to start off? Yes, Commissioner Stump.
I just want to compliment staff. This is not an easy process to go through, without a doubt. And obviously, we received significant yet limited public comment. And it really looks like you've gone out of your way to take that public comment into account. The document that you put out today was also extremely helpful, well done, and certainly answered the questions that I had. And so I just want to, again, thank you for great work.
Commissioner Barnett and then Commissioner Raspy.
It's probably me or the sound system, but I was not able to follow the comments of the public speaker, and I would very much like to receive those in writing if possible. I'm reluctant to ignore those as part of the discussion tonight.
Yeah, we can walk through and summarize those for you. Many of them have already been covered.
Okay, thank you. So what I heard, there was some questions about the 1,200 square foot unit limitation. I believe the request was to remove that. The ordinance has removed that. And again, that's required by Senate Bill 450. There was a question on the utilities, specifically the sewer. But again, I've met with the building official yesterday and today, and that is a building code requirement. The 10% bump, I believe there was a request, again, asking for the 10% bump to be included, as well as a statement on, you're always going to get at least 800 square feet for each unit. Both of those statements are in the SB9 ordinance and have been in the SB9 ordinance. I believe there's a question on the number of units you could build on a lot that was split already. State law essentially gives the town the ability to choose what we want to do there. What we have to require is 2 units on each of the new parcels created. But according to the HCD handout, we can allow additional units if we wanted to. Those would be via ADUs, though. I believe those were the questions I heard.
Thank you very much. That's extremely helpful.
I think also I heard that, I know that I believe the reference to the utilities was perhaps all other utilities also. So that came up, which I assume that we'll discuss that AVAG recommendation inclusion in here later. Commissioner Raspy?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. My comment was already covered. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions for staff right now? I guess I have a question for staff. Mr. Safdie, do you know what other jurisdictions have been doing with regards to the number of units with those additional ADUs?
I haven't seen anybody do 4 units on each of the resulting lots.
Okay.
It's also worth noting that I believe only 2 jurisdictions in Northern California that I've found have even adopted a new ordinance in response to SB 450. So the research was very limited.
Okay.
Chair?
Yes.
First off, I feel it's like a bit of a game show. Commissioner Stump was faster on the button than I was, but I wanted to also come out and say thank you so much to staff for not only the thoroughness of your reports, but the expedience of those, getting those quickly. So staff generally, Mr. Safdie specifically, thank you so much for all your work on this one. I find the record to be complete. I found that staff has addressed, to the extent possible and knowable, all of the questions and concerns that have been raised by the public. And given all the information we have before us, I would move to recommend to Town Council the approval of the ordinance.
Do I have a second? Commissioner Stump? Thank you. And discussion? I would just like to add that I also appreciate all of the hard work and, aligning with all the new and updated statewide laws is something that is necessary for us to keep up with, but I know is a lot of work from staff, so I also appreciate that. If any new updates come online and there is a trend with regards to those additional more than 2 units, I guess just keeping track of that and including it in the staff report for council would be helpful, I would assume. And then I think that the forward think, I know that the splitting of the utilities could be more costly, but I also just want to say that I believe that thinking forward thinking and being able to sell these parcels separately and these units separately, if those changes are going to happen, I think that that is something that is helpful to include, even though it could increase the cost. But I think that I'm also hoping that Town Council can kind of take a look at that a little bit more closely to weigh if it will reduce the amount of development or SB9 lot splits in appropriate areas of town. So that's just what I recommend for Town Council moving forward. Okay. Any other? No. Okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor, raise their hand, and it passes unanimously. And I believe because this is a recommendation, there's no appeal rights.
That's correct.
Okay, and this will be heard by council in the future.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we will move on to other business. with item number 5, which is to forward a recommendation of approval to the town council for the draft proposed capital improvement program budget for the 2025-26 through 2029-30 fiscal years. And I believe we have, I don't know who here to provide that staff report. Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. As my senior engineer, Saurabh Najwan, sets up, he'll be presenting this evening with a recommendation, hopefully to be passed on to Council for reviewing the CIP and indicating that it is in conformance with the general plan. So Saurabh has been with us a little over a year, and he is our Capital Improvement Program senior engineer, and he manages our CIP portfolio. So he is very integral in understanding the projects and delivering those projects, actually taking those projects all the way from planning all the way through design. So he'll be making the presentation for you this evening.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Saurabh Najwan. I work in the Parks and Public Works Department. Thank you for letting me present this evening. Next slide. We're here to present the draft CIP project budget for the next 5 years. This will begin in fiscal year 2025, 26 to 2029-30. And we would like to ask Commission to find the CIP budget categorically exempt and consistent with the general plan. The goal is for Commission to forward a recommendation of approval to Council for this. Under the Government Code, we are required to share with you all proposed projects in our CIP program, so you can judge for and verify for conformity, not just with the general plan, but also the specific plans prior to Council adopting these projects. Next slide. So the 5-year CIP, which begins in July of 2025 and ends in June of 2030, it consists of a lot of improvements for various assets of the town. We have about 113 miles of road, 200 plus acres of parks and open space. We own 12 public buildings. We have more than 2,000 street lights. We own traffic signals, signs, storm drain networks, restrooms, retaining walls, and so forth, and on and on. We have a lot of stuff, and that requires a lot of maintenance. And on top of that, there's always new requirements to build new things and build new improvements. We are proposing a total budget of $40 million over the next 5 years. And in the next fiscal year, we're proposing $6.7 million to be spent through CIP. Next slide. Our biggest revenue source for CIP is GFAR, and a lot of various funding sources go into the GFAR. We get money from cost sharing with other agencies. We get construction impact fees, project balances from the prior years, Measure B, and so forth. In addition, CIP also gets funding from other sources like grants. We get money from gas tax, which is about $1.8 million. And we get funds from traffic mitigation fees, storm drain, and so on and so forth. Next slide. The CIP projects can be broken down into 3 main categories. There's a street program, there's a parks and trails program, and the public facilities programs. The streets is our largest and biggest program. It will take up about 92% of our budget over the next 5 years. Parks and trails will be 3% over budget, and facilities about 5% over budget. Next slide. So for the next 5 years, there's been a lot of changes on how we are funding and prioritizing these projects. In the current fiscal year, which will end in June, we will be completing and consolidating about 14 projects. And then what we did is we looked at all the projects and how they align with the town's strategic priorities. A lot of these strategic priorities are share elements with the general plan, so they go hand in hand together. But one of the things that we ended up doing this year that's different than prior years is we broke the projects down into 3 tiers. Tier 1 is our highest priority, our list of highest priority projects. These are fully funded projects and that are fully staffed, and we feel we can accomplish them in the next fiscal year. We can complete them in the next fiscal year. We also have other projects in Tier 1 that have grants with deadlines. They are pretty much ready for construction at this point, or they're required due to some regulation or enforcement. Tier 2 projects are projects that either don't have enough funds or we just don't have the staffing to be able to complete them. And then the last tier is Tier 3, which don't have any funds, they don't have any staffing allocated, and so unfortunately they are the lowest priority projects at this point. Next slide. And one more, please. Now I'll be going over how our projects are consistent with the elements of the general plan. First one is mobility. So some of the projects that you'll see on there, such as street repair, Highway 17, Pet Bridge, Shannon Road Pet and Bike Improvement Project. These projects improve mobility infrastructure for bicyclists, pedestrians, and transit and motorists. Other projects, just like the ongoing ADA compliance project, it has elements of improving public facilities. And we're using this project to not just improve public facilities, not just our public buildings, but also our curb ramps out in the road as well. So some of these projects overlap through multiple elements in the general plan. Next slide. Another project is our sport court resurfacing project. It has a recreation element of the general plan. We are looking to install EV chargers at the Parks and Public Works building. That will tie into the environmental and sustainability element. We are also adding battery power supply at the library. Next slide. Some of the other critical projects are the roadside fuel fire reduction project, the vegetation management project. These 2 projects are meant to mitigate the hazards of fire or wildfire. And so other projects like the IT disaster resiliency, they are meant to mitigate any disasters that the city could encounter. Next slide. So our recommendation is that the commission finds these projects categorically exempt from the CEQA guidelines, and they find this project budget to be consistent with the budget and the project list to be consistent with the general plan and the specific plans like the North 40, Albright specific plan, the Hillside specific plan. And we hope you can forward a recommendation of approval to Town Council. And I think we'll go to Q&A.
Thank you very much. I just first want to say thank you for all of your hard work. I know that this is a huge feat to just get this in front of us. So thank you for everything in the detailed presentation. Commissioner Stump, I believe, had a question. Perfect.
I'd like to go to finding number 2, because I also want to make sure that as a new commissioner that I completely understand the role of the Planning Commission in this. It looks like our role is only to make sure that these projects are consistent with either the general plan, North 40 specific plan, Albright specific plan, and Hillside specific plan. And since I saw no reference at all to anything other than the general plan, I assume there are no projects that are proposed in this 5-year plan that cross over into any of those other specific plans.
That's correct.
That was my thought. And again, this comes back to role. Obviously, there are a couple of commissions that are going to be feeding into the town council as it relates to CIP. We're one, and we're going to say, yes, consistent. The Finance Commission may have something else to say as it relates to dollars and cents and maybe even viability of projects and so forth. So again, this is truly, on our part, an administrative step only, because I would love to tell you I looked through the plan, but I did not look through these projects in detail. So I assume we are not being called upon to provide any evaluation as it relates to capital improvement projects, period.
The statute itself says the program shall be submitted to the planning agency, which in this case is the Planning Commission, for review and report to the town council as to conformity with the adopted general plan or part thereof. So I actually read the statute to only require that the Planning Commission find conformity with the town's general plan. And so, the question would be, is there anything in the general plan that is contrary to what's proposed in the town's capital improvement program?
Thank you.
Commissioner, I think we have, there's a line. Sorry, guys. Commissioner Barnett was first, and then we'll go down the line. Okay, Commissioner Barnett.
Well, Commissioner Stump answered one of my questions, and with the help of staff. These are not within the specific charge of the Planning Commission tonight, but I was wondering if there are any federal funds that the town relies on that may be in jeopardy now.
In as far as I'm aware, none of our infrastructure transportation projects are in jeopardy at the moment so far.
If I could just add to that, yes, our vegetation management projects are both FEMA funded. We're moving forward with those projects at this time, and we'll be submitting our reimbursement to FEMA, assuming those funds are going to be still available.
Yeah. Can I add one other one? Yeah. Has any consideration been given to public toilets? I know it's a discussion item with the council.
That project is on the list, but it's been moved to Tier 3, that it's because it's not funded and it's not been identified as a council priority at this time.
Okay, thanks so much.
I just have a follow-up question with regards to state and federal funding. What percent of the, what was it, the GFAR, is that what it's called? The GFAR comes from state funding versus federal funding. And if you don't know, that's fine. It's just...
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Okay.
The majority of it is from local funding with some state funding and very limited federal funding, except for, again, those FEMA grants we have for vegetative management.
Okay. And then so yeah, sorry, Commissioner Raspy.
Thank you, Chair. But once again, my excellent questions have been rendered moot by my quicker and more knowledgeable fellow commissioners. I just do wish to extend my thanks to all of staff, and I know the new town manager, this was one of his first big tasks, so if you could please extend our gratitude to him for his hard work on this.
Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you, Chair. So I think I have a question that hasn't been asked. So in regards to the Finance Commission, and and by the way, thank you for a very clear report. I mean, it was very well thought out, and it was very well presented. Thank you. So the question is, in regards to Finance Commission recommendations, which I totally agree with, what they would forward to the town council, and I know that's not our purview, but I just wanted to mention that. But what was mentioned in that they would like to put a pause on the, let's see, capital project 8180803, which is the Highway 17 bridge, because of the cost, $20 to $30 million, what it would end up being, and the funding of that, very little funding has gone towards it. I know it's mainly in design, but I know the Finance Commission is recommending putting a pause on that. And that, of course, is in our general plan. So how would that impact, I mean, we're supposed to be consistent with general plan and our CPI budget, but if that is paused, what impact does that have on our decision-making, if that makes?
Well, I can jump in, and then Mr. Heap may have some additional comments, but staff will obviously be carrying forward the Finance Commission's recommendation. Ultimately, the council will make that decision, and the CIP will go forward one way or the other. Should they choose to go down a different path with specific to that project, then staff would evaluate what, if any, impact it has on the CIP, but it ultimately would modify the CIP if they chose to take that project off the books. But that doesn't mean that the CIP, therefore, is no longer consistent with the general plan.
Well, so just a follow-up question. So then we just take what we're looking at as it is now, without any other consideration.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sorty.
Thank you, Chair. So I looked through the whole document. It's obviously very long, and hopefully I'm remembering this right, but it looked like the mitigation funds were low or maybe non-existent. Correct me if I got that wrong. I guess I'm curious to know to what extent the town is in the habit of collecting mitigation funds into a pool, thinking more for traffic than anything else, but from time to time there are other reasons or other ways that you would collect funds. And is the reason why there isn't anything sitting in the pool because of nexus requirements and the developer usually implements the improvement at the time the project's built? Or maybe you can elaborate a little bit on the mitigation funds.
Yes, we have two impact fee funds that come in with development projects, the storm drain impact fee and then the traffic impact fee. Storm drain impact fee is to improve and extend and expand the storm drainage system in town, while at the same time the traffic impact fee is likewise to enhance the traffic network in town to address cumulative traffic impacts long term. Both those project or fees are collected. We have conditions of approval on every project that goes forward requiring developers to pay those fees. It used to be at the time of building permit issuance, but I think there's some recent legislation that requires us now to move that to occupancy. But those are collected and they are put into different buckets, if you will, and then we pull from those buckets to pay for projects. Currently, there's over $3 million in traffic impact fee funds. And if I remember right, there's several $100,000 in the storm drain fund, which is going right now to fund some of the storm drain improvement projects that are within the CIP this year.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
I have one question about the tier 1, 2, or 3. If a project, if like state funding or local funding ends up changing over the next, few years because of perhaps what's happening at the federal level, and there isn't funding for a project or there's not grant money available anymore, how does the town go about adjusting a project from a tier 1 to a 3 or something?
So we've separated the projects, as Sarab indicated, into tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. The tier 1 projects, again, are projects that are fully funded, are near shovel ready, and we really believe we can deliver this next fiscal year. The tier 2 projects, some of them have funding. Unfortunately, we don't have staffing for a lot of these. If we're able to complete the tier 1 projects and we have the funding and staffing to do that, and we move those forward in a timely manner, which we know we're going to do, we may go to some tier 2 projects. But at this point, we haven't asked for that budgeting to be carried forward in terms of those tier 2 projects into tier 1. We've been asked by council and the city manager to identify those things that we can deliver in 1 year, and the tier 1 projects are those projects.
And I just add that this effort happens every year. So that multi-year scenario will get adjusted as appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Stump.
This is a process question. As projects are coming forward for recommendation, is that one of the first boxes that gets checked? Does this comply with the general plan or any of these other plans? I mean, why would we go forward with a project that does not? So what is our process for evaluating how do they comply with these various plans?
So what you're being asked to review this evening is the project list itself and to identify and determine that these projects are indeed in conformance with the general plan. If you find projects that are not in conformance with the general plan, then we would have additional discussions. But globally, we're not asking for CEQA evaluation on a project-by-project basis at this point. Each project, as it moves forward, will have its own CEQA evaluation. So this is more of a global review and approval this evening that we're asking you to do.
Right, and I was just more asking about your process for checking the box, right, to make sure that as we go into a project justification that it's already clear that it's consistent with the general plan and other specific plans, because otherwise why would you go down that path? So perhaps the process isn't maybe as defined as I was thinking. Step one, is this consistent with the general plan?
That is always something we consider. The first thing we look at is it consistent with the council priorities? And the council priorities in most cases, not all, always align with the general plan.
Thank you very much.
Okay, are there any other questions, or maybe someone would like to make a motion? Commissioner Raspy?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to forward a recommendation of approval to the Town Council for the draft proposed capital improvement project CIP budget for fiscal years 2025/26 through 2029/30 as provided in Exhibit 1 to our staff report. I can make the necessary findings that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to Section 15061B3, and that the projects in the draft proposed fiscal year 2025/26 through 2029/30 CIP budget are consistent with the general plan, and to the extent necessary, the North 40 specific plan, Albright specific plan, and Hillside specific plan.
Can I get a second? Oh, Commissioner Sorty, good job. Okay, and then is there any discussion? I don't believe, okay, and I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise their hand. And the motion passes unanimously. And this is also a recommendation, so Town Council will be hearing it, but there are no appeal rights. So in addition to our role on the Planning Commission, each commissioner serves on other committees and boards. And I believe there are a few committee reports. Is there anything? HPC has not met, so there's no HPC, CDAC, nothing from CDAC, so just GPC. Do you want me to? Okay. GPC met today, and we forwarded a recommendation for one thing that will be coming to us soon. It was what did we talk about first? No, before that. Oh, adopting, a general plan amendment to adopt the new fire hazard severity map for distinguishing the local and state responsibility areas, et cetera. So we will be receiving that in the future. It is just like a map change within the general plan, essentially, with updated maps from the state. So that, and then we also talked about making the recommendation to Town Council to dissolve ourselves, because the work that we are doing is not, we're not doing a lot of work right now. So that will be on a future agenda for Town Council to discuss a couple of options, but essentially we decided that if we are not going to be useful with large major overhauls of our general plan in the near future, then we don't really have a huge role. So what that kind of means for our commission is that anything that previously, small changes to the general plan that first went to GPAC, or the GPC, will now just come straight to us. and we will be the first set of eyes on it. So that's just something to be aware of, and town council will be discussing that in the future at some point. So other than that, I don't believe there's anything else. Is there any any report from Director Paulson?
Yes, thank you. So council met on the 6th of this month, and they discussed Program AB, which the Planning Commission recommended approval of. After their deliberations, they sent it back to staff, asked for us to look at different options and to have a discussion with the Department of Housing and Community Development to see if we may be able to narrow the focus of that effort. So we'll see how that conversation goes with HCD, and then that would return either to the Planning Commission or Council, depending on the scope of those modifications. Also wanted to mention that there was a meeting scheduled a special meeting for the Deodeca 143 to 151 East Main Street that same evening, which we had to cancel for a clerical error between notices. So that will now be heard on the 27th of this month. And then the Genuine Automotive project that also was heard by the Planning Commission will be heard by the council on June 3rd. I think that is all I have at this point.
Okay, thank you, Director Paulson. I just want to say thank you to all staff and commissioners that were here tonight, and our public comment that we received, and additional public comments that we received via written comment. It's always very helpful. So being there no further business of the commission, this meeting is now adjourned.